past decade, social media has changed how society communicates, connects, and perceives certain topics. One specific example is mental health awareness. What was formerly kept under wraps and behind closed doors is now discussed often on the internet. Millions have shared their experiences with anxiety, depression, and trauma on social media platforms. On these platforms, the narrative surrounding mental health has evolved, and the power of vulnerability and community has inspired countless individuals to share their perspectives and struggles.
However, as much as social media helps to decrease the stigma surrounding mental health, it also actively works to enforce the stigma as well. Users often find themselves exposed to harmful stereotypes regarding mentally ill people, depicting them as crazy, dirty, or lazy on social media. These stereotypes often cause people to hesitate when reaching out for help, as they don't wish to be perceived that way. This video will briefly cover the deep history that mental health holds, and compare the past and present to explore the impact, both positive and negative, that social media has had on the stigma surrounding mental health. Then, we will cover some ways to use social media in a healthier way to promote better mental well-being.
Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you're interested in honest and exciting content about mental well-being.
Now let's start at the beginning, to gain some insight into the history of mental health. With the first record of mental health being recorded as early as 6,500 BC, humans around the world and throughout time have shown that mental struggles are nothing new. Various cultures would show that their views on mental health shared similar characteristics with other cultures around the globe, further emphasizing the reality of mental illness in humanity. As time progressed to the mid-1800s, individuals struggling with mental health were often faced with inhumane and harsh treatments, such as forced drugging, ice baths, and in some instances being locked in basements and left to wander the streets. During the latter half of the 20th century, research began to make significant breakthroughs in mental health, offering more humane treatments like medications and therapies. One UK-based charity dedicated to helping those struggling with mental health shared that by 1980, there had been a significant increase in psychiatry professorships in universities and medical schools compared to when they began just 40 years prior. In today's age, treatments can range from medications and therapy to rehabilitation housing, and even something called electroconvulsive therapy, which is small electrical currents to the brain to treat severe mental illness. Science and society have come a long way in how mental illness is treated, but to what extent has society changed how we view mental health? Let's find out. This video will cover both the positive and negative impacts that social media has had on mental health. Let's start with the top 3 reasons social media reduces the stigma on mental health: improving communication, promoting awareness, and increasing mental health research.
First, during the 2020 COVID-19 pandemic, the topic of mental health became increasingly popular as more people began sharing their thoughts and experiences as they faced isolation during quarantine. Posts on social media platforms, especially Instagram and TikTok, began to emphasize reassurance that users aren't alone and should reach out for help if needed. An article published in the Journal of American College Health decided to explore conversations about mental health difficulties by Reddit users who posted within college subreddits during the COVID-19 pandemic. As found from the posts from college students during this time, students provided and received social support online. This is just one example of how users connected and increased communication about mental health, often exposing that the students had similar experiences and truly weren't alone in their struggles.
Second, social media has acted as a door opening society to the reality experienced by many individuals. One specific example of this is the popular US-based Instagram page, boasting over 8 million followers, My Therapist Says. According to a study in the 2023 Rubicon Journal of Transnational American Studies, the account has become popular due to its relatable, anxious-ridden posts. It revolves around the daily struggle of individuals hindered by their mental conditions, such as depression, anxiety, chronic stress, and other psychological issues, all conveyed comically. This social media page, alongside many others, provides insight into what life is like for those who have mental disorders. By conveying experiences, especially by using humor, other users are exposed to the topic of mental health, and the fear caused by misinformation/a lack of information is alleviated. Third, a notable upward trajectory has been found in mental health research after the implementation of social media. A 2023 study on the role of social media in mental health research in the Journal of Scientific Research found that the amount of mental health research before the advent of social media was low, but growing slowly, with a dramatic increase in the late 2000s and an all-time high in 2020. According to the lead researcher, Asliana Azizan, initially, there is a rising consciousness regarding topics concerning mental health, and an increasing realization of the deep influence of social media on mental wellness. She also mentions how social media engenders a sweeping impact on an individual's self-perception, mood, and social relationships, as well as in politics, organizations, and psychiatric illnesses. As mentioned in the introduction, nothing can be without its faults, and this includes social media's depiction and impact on the stigma surrounding mental health. Let's examine the top 3 negative consequences that social media poses, including amplifying stereotypes and misinformation, encouraging self-diagnosis, and allowing harmful self-comparisons. Starting with stereotypes, here's an example that most people are exposed to, but may not be aware of. Picture yourself watching a slasher horror movie, starring a psycho killer on a rampage. Chances are, the producers have built this character with stereotypes of schizophrenic people, using hallucinations as motives for the killer. Pretty harsh, right? Unfortunately though, this is more common than you may think. According to an article written by verywellmind.com, a professional, peer-reviewed, psychiatrist-run webpage that provides information on mental conditions, treatments, and advice. Stereotypes regarding mentally ill people often link mental illness to violence, exaggerate suicide risk, and spread myths about mental illness. Along with the popular film portrayal of schizophrenia, individuals with depression are most commonly depicted as being suicidal. However, depression isn't a guarantee for suicidal thoughts. Next, self-diagnosis occurs often due to inaccurate depictions of mental illness on social media. In many cases, people might see a symptom or experience that an individual with mental illness has and claim that they must also be mentally ill for sharing the experience. But it's a lot more complicated than that. An article discussing the dangers of self-diagnosis from social media shares that psychological disorders are complex and require a thorough evaluation by trained professionals. Symptoms of different disorders can overlap, making it challenging to identify the correct diagnosis without professional help. Likewise, social media allows for harmful comparisons between the lives of users, often rooted in jealousy. By seeing another person share the positive things in their life, an individual may feel more inclined to feel as though something is wrong with them because they don't have that object or experience or relationship. Social media posts also often set unrealistic goals by sharing edited or out-of-context videos or images. By seeing this altered or impossible content, people may feel like they need to fit those unrealistic standards and compromise their certain situation in life, which can lead to an increase in depression and anxiety. Spreading of misinformation, harmful stereotypes, and encouraging self-diagnosis and unrealistic comparisons have contributed to many negative impacts on individuals. The stigma created due to these topics has been found to have serious effects on individuals with mental illness, including reduced hope, lower self-esteem, and difficulties with social relationships. As both the positive and negative impacts of social media and mental health have been covered, let's dive into some tips on how to use social media to help ensure a positive experience. The first way to improve your relationship with social media and your mental health is to decrease daily screen time. Some tips to achieve this could include setting a time limit for certain apps on your phone, or designating certain hours of the day for social media usage. Another way to benefit your mental well-being is to make sure you're engaging with content that you enjoy and doesn't make you feel bad about yourself. This could mean getting rid of junk messages or spam, or unfollowing people who don't make you feel your best. Think about your experiences with social media and how you think it's impacted the way you think about mental health, and leave a comment down below sharing your opinion. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next video.